Honorable, thank you so much for finding time and just to be with us on this platform.
Thank you so much, President, and a very good morning to you. A very good morning to Mr. Balewa from the Ministry of Agriculture.
How is, before I get to Balewa, how is Kanchibia constituency? And by the way, congratulations. You are the second member of parliament who has built a constituency office using constituency development fund. And not too long ago, our Right Honorable Madam Speaker was in Kanchibia commissioning that beautiful constituency office.
We were so honored, that the Honorable Madam Speaker could find time to come through to Kanchibia to commission that particular office. It's a very important office, as you know, that since establishment, Kanchibia's constituency office has been in Impika. You have people traveling over 200 kilometers just to go and present a need, a challenge to a member of parliament, which we thought was not the right way to go. So using the CDF, we said we're going to use this facility to ensure that we bring representation closer to the people. So thank you so much, and congratulations, of course, to the people of Kanchibia, but also to Madam Speaker, who made a clarion upon the floor of Parliament that CDF was that opportunity avenue we could use to construct National Assembly offices. Kanchibia is good. Kanchibia is a mainstay, the economic mainstay basically is agriculture. That's basically what we thrive in. We've had a bumper harvest, of course, with the intervention from the FISP, as you know, but we've also been using the same CDF. So the entire grant component under CDF in Kanchibia goes towards agriculture. Under this particular season, the entire loan component is going towards agriculture.
Okay, I know we'll get into those.
So we're good. We're good.
Okay.
But
I know it's never too late. Congratulations on your appointment as Principal Public Relations Officer for a very critical ministry and the Ministry of Agriculture. And again, congratulations for the bumper harvest. How's the ministry doing?
Thank you very much. Thank you first for congratulating me, and thank you for asking about the Ministry of Agriculture. I think as Minister of Agriculture we're doing well, and we are on top of things in terms of trying to address all the issues that the industry is doing. And you know that we're just coming from a devastating drought in the 2020 season, and 24-25 farming season. It's something that is remarkable.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. The number that we are using, if you wish to be part and parcel of today's presentation of the countdown to the official opening of the 5th session of the 13th Assembly, is 0978 772801. 0978 772801. And my sign language interpreter this morning is Chola Kauma. We know that the Republican president will be here on Friday, and his address would definitely give Zambia's development trajectory. And today, I just want us to at least have a bias towards agriculture. Maybe I'll begin with Balewa. The Republican president, Ms. Hakainde Hichilema, will be here on Friday. Now, how would you describe your 2025 of 2024 farming season?
For Minister of Agriculture, or the agriculture sector in this country, 2025 has been a remarkable year in terms of how we've rebounded as a country in terms of the bumper harvest that we recorded. It's not easy. It takes hard work. It takes good policy direction from the leadership, and also it takes the resiliency of the farmers from all the corners of this country. I'm sure in his preamble, the Honorable MP for Kanchibia just mentioned that Kanchibia is one of those that contribute. So for us, it's the hard work of the farmers, good policy direction, and the hard work of every single Zambian that responded to the call by the president to be able to go back to the land and plant in faith.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Honorable Chanda, last year in the president's address did talk about agriculture and how the number of beneficiaries for FISP were increased, and you rightly talked about how you've utilized constituency development fund in your constituency as Kanchibia. But maybe just bring us to speed. How is your constituency doing agriculture-wise, you having been one of the members of parliament coming from rural constituencies?
The constituency is doing fine in terms of agriculture, and fine in the sense that that is the mainstay of our economy, our local economy as Kanchibia. Majority of our people are engaged in agriculture, and of course at peasantry level, and it is our desire that we can graduate our people to mechanization, mechanized farming, even with the minimum mechanization kits, but we can get them there. But of course, with the sort of agriculture our people have engaged fully, and in terms of food gear, we have seen a bumper harvest in Kanchibia. We've had to increase satellites, those are selling points for maize by an additional 10 across Kanchibia because of the amount of or the yield as it has been. So there's a bumper harvest in Kanchibia. That's a positive side of things. Of course, the flip side of it is that the pace at which our farmers are getting payments for their crop is one that is of concern, and that is a matter that we are going to table with the relevant authorities, the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Finance. Of course, we know that there are all these competing needs when you're running government, and but want to believe that every farmer who has sold their maize to the Food Reserve Agency will be paid. The anxiety, of course, will be when are we getting paid, because they've got to prepare for the next farming season, etc. And I want to believe that that becomes a critical matter, which we believe the head of state should be able to address himself to. Firstly, to commend the farmers for the hard work they've put in, but also to assure the farmers that the government will do whatever it can do to ensure that farmers are paid on time. Okay. It's also possible that farmers have exceeded government's expectations, and so you would have a government, of course, making allocations that these are the quantities we're going to buy, and only to realize, boom, there's a bumper harvest. Okay. And but with that being said, the positive thing is that our people worked very hard, not just the farmers in Kanchibia but across the country, and kudos to our farmers. And as you know, there's no sector in this country which has the potential to absorb as much labor as compared to agriculture. Agriculture is the surest way of us creating jobs, both in terms of production but also along the value chain. Okay. And the President has addressed himself to the value chain several times, and it is our prayer that there will be again additional energy, and that's what we would call on the government and His Excellency the President, that there's additional energy, additional oomph, to the agricultural sector, like we've seen with the mining sector. That kind of energy transposed to the agriculture sector, I think that there will be a lot of gains. Otherwise, Kanchibia is good. We are ready to go into the next agriculture farming season. We still have more people not yet on FISP. Of course, we've had those who've been added to the numbers, but still we still have more people. And I think interventions and supported again. We've leveraged with the Constituency Development Fund, the grant facility, the loan facility, all that being channeled to agriculture. That has also been able to contribute effectively to the production that we have seen in Kanchibia.
All right, let me take you back to last year. Almost around this time, the President was here at Parliament grounds, and he did make some policy pronouncements regarding agriculture. You, as a member of Parliament for Kanchibia, what really stood out from his address last year?
For me, I think it was the direction, and also the tenacity to say that despite us coming from, this drought, the clarion call to the farmers that the projections are telling us that we're going to have sufficient rains, go and, cultivate. That sort of call was a bold call, because the chances would probably get into another drought. And the fears were, are we going to get a drought back to back? But the fact that the head of state came, spoke to the nation, spoke to the farmers, and also gave them that assurance that will ensure that you grow your crop, and that your crop will be bought and paid for and that you receive your monies on time. For me, that was very important. And I don't want to believe that there's been any attempt to renege from that particular position. That commitment still remains, and that assurance is what we expect the head of state to still build on as it comes this Friday. This particular sector is a very important sector. As you know, we're dealing with a number of jobs, and the jobs we need to create as a country. If there's a sector that has the potential to create those kind of jobs, it becomes the agriculture sector.
Okay.
If there's an opportunity for rural areas like the constituency I represent to become so relevant to urban areas, it is by way of the agriculture sector, because very soon rural areas, rural constituencies will begin to feed urban populations. That creates an economic opportunity for our people.
Okay. Balewa, the Minister of Minister of Agriculture faced quite a number of questions from various members of Parliament on the floor of the House regarding the issue to do with some of the adjustments that the ministry made through Cabinet, of course. The number of bags that farmers were expected to sell back to FRA, those who benefited from FISP. Maybe just clarity. I know we're coming from 2024 to 2025 farming season. I'm sure our viewers and our listeners would really want to get clarity from the Minister of Agriculture.
The idea behind the minimum 10 bags of maize and 7 bags of 40 kg paddy rice that are supposed to be sold to the food reserve agents, it comes from the backdrop that every single farmer that is under the Farmer Input Support Program, FISP, they are farmers first, and so they are supposed to produce. They are aided by the government to go into production, and because government has to ensure that there is enough reserves, so those farmers are supposed to sell back to the government at least a minimum of 10 bags of white grain, that's maize, and for rice that's 7 bags by 40 kg for paddy rice. And so the idea is to ensure that actual farmers benefit, because the challenge has been that a person will just come and receive, and then they go and start selling in medas, they start selling just in small quantities. So a real farmer will produce and be able to sell back to the government.
We've seen quite a number of people being on FISP for so many years, and the biggest concern from various stakeholders is the issue for these farmers to graduate and create room for other farmers to start benefiting from FISP. And it is the only platform here where we can speculate. Are we seeing some pronouncements where there will be some restrictions of how many years a farmer should be on FISP, and at what level should one graduate?
I think under the CASIP, it's an issue of transitioning to a sustainable financing facility like SAF, which is which has been put in place. If you've observed for the past 2 years, I think the number for FISP beneficiaries have remained the same. It's just over 1 million, and the number is static. And so the idea is to ensure that every single person, because under FISP only vulnerable farmers receive the FISP for them to be able to produce. But you find that there's a productive population out there that needs to produce. And so what do you do to help them also produce more for the country? So you help them by ensuring that there's another financing mechanism that is going to help them have access to cheaper finance from the banks. And so that's the reason why there's now SAF, which is helping us to transition to ensure that those that are working, those that are doing other businesses, can also see agriculture as a business that it is, so that every single Zambian now becomes part of the story of producing for the nation. Yes. All
right. Before I get to Honorable Sandy Chanda, maybe still with the Minister of Agriculture, in last year's address, which was made by the Republican President, we did see an overwhelming response from various financial institutions that really wanted to engage with the Minister of Agriculture in terms of facilitating for loans to these farmers. Are we expecting more numbers of financial institutions that will be able to collaborate with the Minister of Agriculture? And having that in mind, maybe the other clarification that would want to get from you is, what are some of the successes that you've scored based on what the President talked about in last year's address?
So in terms of a number of financing institutions, when there's a positive story, everyone wants to be part of it, and so we expect more financing institutions to be able to come to the table and see how we can help the farming community. And so government is always open for more financing institutions, because it's a positive for us to be able to have them on board. And in terms of successes, I'm sure the most remarkable story is the story of the bumper harvest that we're talking about, and there are many more other initiatives that the ministry is doing. We rolled out a number of varieties that are climate smart, that support farmers to be able to plant and have their harvest within the short period of time. And other milestones that we have achieved is we've been able to set up over 50 mechanization centers across the country, and that's one of the issues that we are trying to help out rural areas, like where the Honorable MP is coming from, so that at least we reduce on the labor aspect, so that farmers are able to access mechanization within their areas. And we are also increasing, apart from the 50 ones that we have put, we want at least every district to have a number of them, so that we reduce on the labor intensity. Then we'll be able to tell a good story of agriculture being a business.
Honorable, Valeo has brought in quite a good dimension in terms of working with these, more especially peasant farmers in your constituency. You're coming from Mochinga province. Now, how would you advocate for increased access to agricultural financing and markets, more especially for small-scale farmers in your constituency in Mochinga province?
Thank you, President, and I think in agreeing with Balewa, agriculture is a business, and it's not just one of those activities you want to do because you want to sustain your livelihood in that sense. Getting our people to appreciate that agriculture is a business, and that from agriculture we can create wealth for our people, that becomes very important. The farmer in Kanchvia is ready to embrace the SAF as an opportunity. The farmer in Kanchvia is ready to get a loan to finance agriculture and pay back, service that loan. And this becomes a very important dimension, and I think one of the conversations this country needs to have at a given point. Some of us have raised these issues on the floor of Parliament, and speaking as a member of Parliament for the people I represent, that we need to migrate from FISP as we know it to financing agriculture for purposes of agriculture becoming this business. We don't just finance inputs, but we also go to the extent of financing equipment, and that is what SAF is doing. The extent to which we roll out SAF over the coming years becomes very important in us repositioning agriculture in this country. And that then will begin to speak to the role of agencies such as the Food Reserve Agency, and whether the Food Reserve Agency would then be expected to play the role it plays now of just focusing on food security, or we can have now a Food Reserve Agency that also becomes an agency that can look for markets over and beyond the borders of this country, where our farmers can sell their crop at a much better price. The winner at the end of it all becomes this farmer. So instead of us just talking about the smuggling into DRC and some of these neighboring countries, the reason why this has continued and over the years smuggling still is part of our conversation is because there's a lot of potential this country has, and much is expected from us. But what we call smuggling is basically a yawning market, that whenever we grow, whenever we invest in agriculture, we must invest with DRC in mind and a number of these countries surrounding us. But let's also understand that the wars we've had, such as the war between Russia and Ukraine, that has disturbed the food chains at global level. There's a way that this country can find a niche if we went to say, okay, let's invest in agriculture. We've had the targets, as I earlier on alluded to, from the mining sector. We're talking about all these millions of tons of copper in terms of output. The same can be done and said about agriculture, that we invest, we finance agriculture as a business, and not just as a social activity, but as a business. We empower people through the SAF. Zambians in my constituency are ready for the SAF. And if you asked a farmer in Kanchibia to choose between FISP and SAF, they'll tell you, give me SAF. Because they know that they can work, they know that they'll produce, they'll be able to pay back and still remain in control of their profits. What also becomes important is for us to start thinking and rethinking market access, and also preventing, creating a standard against those who seek to exploit, especially the rural farmer. The rural farmer becomes so susceptible to what we call the briefcase buyers. Of course, these are people, entrepreneurs, who want to make a profit on the produce that has been made. But the reason why we've had it so disorganized and in certain instances working to the detriment of the farmer is because we probably haven't gotten to a point where we can rethink FRA, we rethink FISP, we rethink agriculture. There are countries like Nigeria, countries like South Africa, which will engage in a crop such as maize, and they will be very clear that we're growing this particular crop not just for domestic consumption but also for the export market. It's also very important for us to agree that with agriculture, the need for us to diversify the crop portfolio becomes very important. And that also helps us to ensure that our market is not just, or Zambia does not just become a monocrop, or agriculture is not just a monocrop activity, but that we can have a variety of crops, high value crops, which will be traded both domestically but also at regional and international markets.
All right. The number that we are using if you wish to participate on today's countdown to the official opening of the 5th session of the 13th Assembly is 0978 772801. And I'll be able to read your text messages in a short while, so keep sending those messages. And those of you that have the privilege of watching this program live, you're able to see your text messages crawling on our screen. Also, you on our radio platform, make sure that you send in your text messages and I'll be able to read them out. Remember, this program is live on both television and radio. And my two guests that I'm interacting with is Mr. Sunday Chanda, Member of Parliament for Kanchibia constituency, and Mr. Balewa Yulu, Principal Public Relations Officer from the Ministry of Agriculture. Mr. Balewa did talk about mechanization, and the President in last year's address did talk about having some winter maize, because for the longest period of time we've depended on rain-fed agriculture. And when you have a drought like what we experienced in 2024, I think it was a disaster. But these things are very, very expensive when you talk about mechanization. Any possibility of you, our lawmakers, to lobby government and make sure that these facilities are sanctified?
Very important and a very, again, critical aspect of our conversation. That with the sort of environment and climate we have as a country, and especially in areas such as Kanchibia, where you have access to water bodies all year round, you have all the dam balls all year round, but agriculture becomes a seasonal activity, becomes an indictment on ourselves as Zambians. And those of us who are privileged to represent the people must then argue and engage the executive that can we make it a priority that rural constituents especially even under the CDF scope, that part of the packaging of the CDF, I mean, we have seen police vehicles under the CDF, we have seen ambulances under the CDF. Nothing stops the Ministry of Agriculture from having a share in the CDF component, to say that part of what should be done would be mechanization. And sometimes it's the mini mechanization irrigation kits. But what this got to do is to change the way agriculture is done on the ground. We need to graduate our people from the hoe to a tractor. And this tractor may not be this big horse-powered tractor. We have mini tractors. Technology has really evolved. People can get their diesel from a filling station and put in a very small piece of equipment. What that piece of equipment will be able to do is amazing. So that we have a lot of solutions on the market. And so the idea of irrigation, the idea around mechanization is non-avoidable.
Okay.
I have made this call before on the floor of Parliament, that we need agriculture to find a space in the CDF component.
Okay.
If, for example, we had an inbuilt figure within the CDF facility that you are going to spend 2 million or 3 million kwacha on mechanization, then would know that we can go for those mini tractors, and what that would do is to impact positively on agriculture, and the subsequent agriculture seasons will look very, very different.
Balewa would want to comment. I know you're coming from the Ministry of Agriculture, but like I mentioned earlier on, we don't know what the President will talk about come Friday, but you can only speculate and also talk about the previous address that the Republican President made sometime in September last year. The issue to do with mechanization, a very critical component if we want to boost our economy and our agriculture sector in Zambia. The Ministry of Energy enjoying zero-rating solar equipment, but are we seeing any opportunity come 2026 where our farmers, Mr. Chanda, can own 2 pivot centers in Kanchiria constituency at an affordable amount?
I'm glad you're asking the lawmaker. So from the Minister of Agriculture perspective, first I would love to also respond to the Honorable MP that just like the targets are given to the Minister of Mines, even in the Minister of Agriculture we are given targets, and that's to produce 10 million metric tons of maize, 1 million metric tons of wheat, and 1 million metric tons of soybeans by 2031. That's annually. So we also have a target. Yes, we had a bumper harvest, but we have a huge target that we need to meet, and in meeting that target, that's where now mechanization comes in, and that's where irrigation comes in. I'm sure you are aware that there was a launch of the Presidential Irrigation Initiative, which is on course, and if you observed in the past 2 years, the President has never gone to any field to say, I'm launching the planting season for this year. To him and to us, there is no season anymore, because we need to produce enough for this country and beyond. And how do we do that? It's by us going back to ensure that how do we utilize our water bodies, like Honorable Sandy Chanda has alluded to. So the idea is we go back and enforce on irrigation, and we have provided platforms like SAF, and SAF is really, the intention is to ensure that you can access anything that you want to use for farming. And that's even in terms of mechanization. In terms of cost reflectiveness and having it cheaper, I think in the budget the importation of equipment is already given that threshold where it's not as expensive as it was, and so I think it's up to the members of Parliament to ensure that agriculture is actually subsidized to the level where an ordinary person is also able to access the equipment, like center pivots and everything else. And so just to bring it to speed as well, that the past season when we started the mechanization 360, we've benefited or given farmers that have benefited, I think about 1 million farmers have already benefited from going to access the services of the mechanization centers. So we encourage our farmers in Kanchivia, in Chikankata, in Mazabuka, anywhere they are, that they should utilize those mechanization centers, because they are set up in those places for them and not for anyone else. So they can still utilize, even when you do not own yours personally, but you can still use the same equipment that has been provided at a very cheap rate.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Balewa, for that clarification. But I should also acknowledge some people that are following us through our socials, and this is on our YouTube channel, and indeed not forgetting the Facebook page. And the first one is that's Kabo Mpamba, and you are watching from Namwala. In Zambia, that's Mungaila. Thank you so much. And the other one is Kavinda Chingambu. Thank you so much, Kavinda. You are in Solwezi town in Northwestern Province. And Sean Chibuye, you are watching us. You are saying government and the National Assembly. Thank you so much. Hats off. Thank you so much for those emojis that you sent. ITX Tumson. You are watching us from Eastern Province in Chasefu. We also have Charlie Zambia saying, okay, thank you so much, Charlie. Dennis Ivo Kabamba, you are following us through from Solwezi. Let's go to our message facility and read two messages in line with what you're talking about. And the other one reads, the first one coming from, okay, that's W there. I agree with Mr. Chanda, the fact that the Republican president must address the issue of paying farmers early and prepare for the next season. Also, the president must address FISP beneficiaries, because others benefiting are ghost farmers. Thank you so much, although I could not see the name there, but we appreciate for your text message. Let's go to another text message. To start with, that is very good program, and it needs support from all meaningful citizens. So far, a person to become a good farmer needs farming inputs as well as support from the Ministry of Agriculture in collaboration with the Ministry of Lands to ensure smooth implementation. That's Morgan there. Thank you so much, Morgan. So for now, we'll just look at those two because they're in line with what we're talking about. Would you want to comment, Honorable Chanda?
Very important. Let me commend the ministry for taking the initiative to establish mechanization centers, but also qualify that to say that I'm happy that it's work in progress, because we have, for example, the mechanization center in Mpika, and now if you look at the queue, of those who want to use the equipment, this is the more reason why the work in progress then tells us that the mechanization centers ought to be, again, decentralized at district level. And this is where we must be going. It's a step in the right direction. The commendation would be that even in the 2026 budget, national budget, let us see more of these resources going towards mechanization and these mechanization centers. It's a way to go. What you can do with equipment, with a tractor, and what you can do with your kambwidi, the difference therefore to see. But this also creates a window for young entrepreneurs, even those in urban areas, that they can look at agriculture but also along the value chain. With mechanization, we can start discussing how we can dismantle the job numbers or the unemployment numbers, because then the labor market will have more capacity to absorb those numbers. We can have a young person in Lusaka, a young graduate in Lusaka, who's been waiting to, I'm applying for a job, etc., knowing I can go and get finance from somewhere. I can get finance under SAF. I can go to Kanchibia. I can partner with a cooperative. We can jointly work on probably seed production. We can work on spices, etc. We produce, we package, we come and supply the chain store. So it becomes very important that the need for us to look at agriculture from a very different perspective becomes important.
Okay.
And I'm aware of those targets that Balewa made reference to, which are very, very important. And we cannot get to those targets in the absence of mechanization.
Okay.
You know, for all the categorized crops.
Okay.
In the absence of mechanization, we cannot get there. But also for those of us in rural areas, there are issues around feeder roads, around bridges, you know, around communication, energy, etc., clean energy. All these things come to play into the mix that for a farmer moving crop from one point to another on a bad road, each grain that falls off is $1, it's a cent, it's kwacha, it's money. The more reason why we again look at any opportunity that comes. The CDF comes, we get the yellow machines, that of course has a bearing on good roads. We can open up new and access roads, shorter distances, etc., for our farmers to move their crop. And in terms of the direction, I can tell you, without you know, beating about the bush, the direction we're taking in terms of agriculture should be the right way to go.
Okay.
Let us invest more money in SAF, and that is something that we'd want to see this year.
Okay.
More money is invested in SAF so that we have more people, more of our farmers benefiting, accessing, not benefiting, but accessing SAF, the SAF facility.
I know, Honorable, sorry to cut you short. You've talked about the issue to do with the mechanization, accessing SAF as well. You are a lawmaker and you have all the powers, and the session starts this coming Friday. Are we seeing Honorable Sunday Chanda moving a private member's motion and actualize what we're talking about here, so at least the people out there in Kanchibia constituency can benefit?
Exactly. I mean, that we're going to do on behalf of the people of Kanchibia. I'm just coming out of the constituency and having interacted both with the residents of Kanchibia but also their Royal Highnesses. Our Royal Highnesses, 4 Royal Highnesses, are engaged in agriculture. I'll give an example of His Royal Highness Chief Kabinga, who's one of our big farmers in Kanchibia in terms of the crop. But what do we do to ensure that we support this Chief Kabinga from just producing in a year to producing all year round? You know, so the idea around center pivots becomes very important. What packaging can we have for rural areas? The rural part of Zambia, like I said earlier, will begin to feed urban Zambia. There's no, I mean, where are you going to find land for farming in Lusaka? You know, for example, Lusaka is going to depend on an area like Kanchibia to produce. But what happens with these along the value chain, the market linkage, etc., therein can we create jobs for our people? Therein can we produce more for us to also export to the, you know, the region, etc. But at the end of it all, we'll be able to get there once we realize that agriculture is not just any other social activity you want to engage in. Agriculture is business. Let us create jobs, quality jobs out of agriculture. And agriculture is not just for, you know, someone who's called a villager, you know, someone who's called a peasant farmer. The idea would be, can we graduate that peasant farmer, you know, through agriculture? Can we create millionaires by way of agriculture? Can we create jobs for the hundreds of thousands of young graduates through agriculture? That is doable.
Okay.
So the more the population grows, the more the demand there is for food, and agriculture just becomes the best way to go.
Balewa, quickly, would you want to comment on those two messages that we just read out?
Yes, I think I would love to agree with what the Honorable is saying, and also clarify that the government is working on ensuring that those that benefit from government programs such as SAF and FISP are real farmers. And one of the initiatives that has been done going into this next season is we've gone completely 100% e-voucher system. So there will be nothing like Balewa is distributing fertilizer or seed or whatever is supposed to be distributed to Namala using any other means. We've going into e-voucher means that there are no people in between,
okay.
And then there is serious scrutiny because we've engaged the 3 mobile service providers to ensure that at least the people that are on the program are real people with real addresses, and then we're able to trace them, and then to remove the ghost farmers, because the system is now interlinked. The reason as to why we are even telling people to say, please sell your minimum of 10 bags to the food reserve agents, so that we enable them to actually be able to benefit even as we move forward. So when you sell your 10 bags, immediately it will show in the system that you sold your minimum of 10 bags of maize, then you qualify to receive more support from the government.
Okay.
And so there are serious initiatives that have been done to ensure that the entire system is centralized to be able to enable the right people to benefit from the programs.
Okay, all right. I'm sure you're responding to that concern that was raised regarding ghost farmers there.
Yeah.
This is the countdown to the official opening of the 5th session of the 13th Assembly. The Republican President is expected to be here at Parliament grounds on Friday the 12th. And as we speak, quite a number of activities going on outside Parliament grounds, and some serious rehearsals taking place and readiness for this coming Friday. Let me get back to the SMS facility, but before I do that, let me acknowledge the people that are following us on our socials. And this is Maji Chipo watching from Mutanda in Kalumbila, Northwestern Province. We have Elias Banda from Oba, should be right here in Lusaka City. And Siavonga is also being represented by Mutinta Jasi. Charles N. Emungosa is asking a question. I think that one goes to you, Balewa. Who is eligible for SAF? And Pakayu saying, Morgan, you'll watching you from Lundazi. Should be your namesake there in Lundazi. Thank you so much, Morgan. And we also have David Eo Nzunda. You are from the friendly city in Indola. That's why you're watching us from Chongo. Ephraim, you are in Imbala. Thank you so much. And let me know your expectations. We know that the president will be here on Friday, so it's also nice to hear from you what your expectations are. You can use the SMS facility, any social platform, and I'll be able to read your expectation live on television and radio. Let's see some of the text messages that we have, if we have any. We do have some more text messages, and this one reads, government should go in rural areas to see how farmers live, like in Kaoma, Kalumwange, no roads, no water, no network. Thank you so much. And this is what Honorable Chanda talked about, issue to do with network. I'm just encouraging the government through FRA to give the farmers money on time so that they buy inputs as early as possible to cushion the cost of living. Thank you so much, Lungo, all the way from Kitwe there. So those two questions, and together with qualification for SAF, maybe I'll start with you, Balewa.
Yeah, it's lovely first to hear that Morgan is watching. He's one of my nephews.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah, so
Okay.
in terms of who qualifies for SAF, it's every single Zambian with a green national registration card. It's not limited to a few people. It's for every single Zambian out there to be able to benefit, because we're talking about agriculture being a business. So every single Zambian who feels they can add to the positive story or a success story of Zambia being able to be the hub of agricultural products, then they should be able to go and access the finances through SAF.
Okay, any other comment that you would want to tackle regarding the text messages that we just read out?
So in terms of the text messages, I think it has been addressed by the Honorable in terms of accessibility of the farmers. I think that's another minister that addresses that, and it will be
Honorable, you'd want to comment?
Thank you. Yes, just to say that the rural part of Zambia, as the gentleman from Kaoma has alluded to, the things urban Zambia would take for granted. But these are real issues when you come to the rural part of Zambia. The aspect around feeder roads becomes very important. Crossing points, bridges becomes very important. Network becomes very important. These are enablers for the agriculture sector, because once you have good network, once you have good feeder roads, once you have those crossing points, like I said earlier, the movement of goods, agricultural produce, from point A to point B becomes easy for the farmer, less costly for the farmer. And again, the crop is safe. The farmer can move the produce from point A to point B without having to worry about how much of it will fall off because it's being carried on a bad road. So there's again every need, as I've alluded to, that we invest more in feeder roads, we invest more in ensuring that there are bridges. The rural parts of Zambia, and this is what I've said to colleagues in a different, on different fora, that a time is coming when we're going to have not the urban drift, but the rural drift. That we're going to have people moving from urban areas to go and invest in rural areas, but also to partner with those already in rural areas around production, around the value chain, especially when it comes to agriculture. There's nothing you cannot grow in an area like Anchivia. You can do your spices, you can do your seed, you can do whatever. But what the cooperatives have lacked over time would be the enablers and the mechanization we're talking about. And again, the market access. Who is ensuring that there's market on the cooperative? If there's a cooperative in Kanchibia growing chili or paprika or whatever it is, who is ensuring that there's an off-taker? You know, someone who's going to link them to a chain store in Lusaka. The price will be better, etc. But again, within Kanchibia, to what extent do we set up the centers where they would know that I can take my crop and my crop will be preserved and my crop is going to be safe? So agriculture, in us imagining it as a business, then means that we need to heighten the conversation, that it should be more over and beyond the FISP as we know it. Let us rethink FISP by transitioning into SAF and giving more support for resources to get into SAF. Let's have more mechanization centers. Let's have more market linkages, linking the entrepreneurs both in rural areas and urban areas. That way the farmer is going to win. Okay.
We're almost getting to the tail end of today's program, but maybe a viewer and a listener out there would want to hear from you, Honorable Chanda. What would you want to see in the President's address this coming Friday?
I want to see that the President giving directive to the Ministry of Local Government, Ministry of Agriculture, local government because that's a custodian for the CDF facility, but directing that agriculture equipment should form part of the packaging for the CDF in the next farming season. This is something I'd really love to see. Number two, the assurance to our farmers who have sold their crop and not yet paid, that let them take heart, they'll be paid their money, and that they'll be paid in time for the next agriculture season. But also to say that whatever crop has been produced but not bought by the Food Reserve Agency would still have market elsewhere. This is the reason why Elliot said that we need to also rethink the role of the Food Reserve Agency, that they don't just procure for food security, but they can procure for existing markets. Those markets would be markets at regional level. Those markets would be markets at international level. China is hungry for our maize, as an example. We can produce, sell to these markets at a far much better price, and this will be very good for the farmer. I want to believe that going into the future, agriculture is a sector that can, as a matter of fact, be self-financing, because if it is a business, we can come to the budget and would know the extent to which this particular sector has been able to self-finance, because it is a business.
But when we were starting this program, you did talk about the bumper harvest that the country has recorded this year, and I can speculate that I'm sure the President will talk about the exports, because various stakeholders received the announcement that was made by the Minister of Agriculture, of course through Cabinet, that Zambia is ready to export surplus maize to our neighboring country. But how do you make of the exportation of maize to other countries? Are we okay as a country, so at least we don't find ourselves in a similar predicament we found ourselves, where we exported some surplus and we ended up importing from our neighboring countries? And we did hear the Burundian president offering some grain to this country.
In terms of the question that you've asked, I think as a country we stand on solid ground that we have enough stocks. Remember that we have also the brought forward stocks from last year. So in terms of, are we food secure? We are very much food secure. And remember that we have transitioned, as from Ministry of Agriculture, we are no longer looking at this farming season. We are looking at every single day being a farming season.
Okay.
So we are producing, as we speak now, we expect some harvest through the winter maize and different projects that government has involved itself in. And so in terms of security of food, we have enough stocks. And like Honorable Sunday Chanda has pointed out, you cannot just keep the food within. You need to find ways of making sure that you add the value. So the Chief Government Spokesperson, Honorable Cornelius Mwetwa, announced the cabinet decision to export 500,000 metric tons of maize, of mealie meal. And so that means that through that mechanism, then we will also be able to raise more funds to be able to support the farmers, because we want to ensure that every single farmer that wants to sell their maize, at least they sell to the government or they sell to anyone who wants to buy, but they also keep something for them to be able to sustain themselves.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I want you to remove the jacket as principal public relations officer from the Ministry of Agriculture, and I want you to speak, I know which is very difficult, as a farmer and a Zambian citizen. What would you want to see in the President's address come Friday regarding agriculture? Maybe under a minute, before I just read maybe 2 or 3 text messages that we have. We do have quite a number of SMSs in our system.
I think it's the policy direction that gives us a challenge as citizens of this country to see agriculture for what it is, which is a business. And so once we do that, then we'll be able to move to the direction that the head of state wants us to move.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chanda, as we wind up today's program, but maybe I'll let you first hold on to your thought as an area member of parliament, but I wanted you to speak as a farmer and as a resident of Lavushimanda. But let's see some just few text messages, 2 or 3 text messages before we conclude today's program. I know people have been sending in quite a number of text messages. Let's see who do we have who has sent a text message and from where. All right, this one reads, rural productivity and support farmer is a success in Zambia. I call upon the government to encourage sustainable financing conditions promoting stakeholder farmer growth in Zambia. Lungo, thank you so much, from Kitwe. Another lengthy one. It has been difficult here in Kaoma, where by individual applies for self-loan under irrigation, and upon being one of the beneficiaries, the bank drops him, and they say distance is a barrier, and bank can only give a certain coverage of
Coverage.
50 kilometers, or coverage of 50 kilometers, and you find out that the blocks is about 100 kilometer. What's your advice? Thank you so much. Make sure that you summarize your text messages as you send. It'll be easier for us to read. Okay, thank you so much. I think we'll just work. Okay, there's another one. I agree. Mr. President's address the nation about paying farmers and FISP, because time is running out. 22 Kabwe, Mukonchi Road, that road is too busy, so it needs maintenance. It's at the bad stage. If not looked at before, it must be looked at before the rain starts. Okay, thank you so much for that text message. And quickly also, let me go to our Facebook page, and I do have quite a number of text messages, and this one, okay, just acknowledging people that are Agri Mutanga watching from Choma, and also Chavuma is being represented by Kenex. We have another one, Pamela Kateka. Congratulations, you have clarified to get an online loan. It's easier and faster. Okay, all right, thank you so much. Appreciate for those text messages. As we wind up, Mr. Chanda.
Yes.
I want you to speak, maybe under a minute, as Sandy Chanda. Yes. Not Honorable Sandy Chanda. Yes. Sandy Chanda, a resident of Kanchibia, who's a farmer. What would you want to see in the presidential address regarding the agriculture sector?
As a farmer, I want the president to look into the eyes of that farmer, me the farmer, and assure me that my effort and my sacrifice will meet corresponding commitment from the executive and from the Food Reserve Agency to, number one, get what they're supposed to get, but that for the surplus, there would still be mechanisms for me to sell this particular crop to the market. Now, the framework then becomes important. What do we do to the farmer who has worked so hard and produced? Do we just throw them out to the wind and say that whoever you sell to and at whatever price, that is fine? Or does government come in to provide this framework? And this is where, much as the FRA Act speaks about exports, but I think we need to find a way of reinforcing that.
Okay.
That once what FRA can get has been gotten,
okay,
what role can FRA play in ensuring there's market creation for our farmers?
Okay.
It is very difficult for a small farmer like myself to find a market in China, you know, but through agencies like FRA, this is being done by countries like Nigeria. There you have agencies that basically run the show in terms of securing markets for produce that has been made for purposes of exporting.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Honorable Chanda. Balewa, under 30 seconds, your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much. I think it's also to just acknowledge that farmer who raised a concern on their staff. I think it's important that they give us that information because it helps us also to check some of the teething problems even as we implement the program.
Okay.
And so we want to thank all the farmers that supporting the government by going back to the land and plant. And so we are hopeful as Minister of Agriculture, and we are looking forward to the address by the President because it will provide a proper, broader direction for the country and for the sector.
Okay. Yeah. Honorable Chanda, 30 seconds. I know if you give a politician a microphone, they'll take the whole day just talking, but 30 seconds. Please.
Under 30 seconds. I'll do 10 seconds.
Okay.
What that farmer talked about, the banks, especially with rural realities, is a real issue. And you can't blame the banks because banks cannot get to areas that have no internet connectivity, bad roads, etc., and also beyond a certain distance. It doesn't make business sense. So the more the need for us to rethink and see how best can we ensure that SAF benefits that farmer in beyond the 50-kilometer stretch becomes very important.
Honorable, thank you so much for finding time to be with us on the countdown to the official opening of the 5th session of the 13th Assembly.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for making time and interact with us on this platform.
Thank you for having us.
All right, I'd like to say thank you so much to you, our viewers out there and our listeners out there, those of you that have been following us through our radio platform. I'd like to say thank you, we appreciate, and those of you that have just been listening to this countdown to the official opening of the 5th session of the 13th Assembly, I'm saying we are humbled, and we'll be back tomorrow at the same time at 08:30 hours as we look at another interesting sector. Remember, the Republican President will be here on Friday and he will officially open the 5th session of the 13th Assembly. What are your expectations? You can still utilize our SMS facility and be able to read your text messages tomorrow. My name is Paul Sentindovi on behalf of the entire production crew. Thank you so much for your time.